Welcome to the Media Nerds Podcast. I'm Dan Vadebonker.
And I'm Kenton Larson.
And if I sound a little bit different and you did not listen to Star Wars Nerds last week, that's because I am back on campus. I am here today testing out all our equipment for our students who will not be back in person. Kenton, how are you? You've been back on campus recently too, haven't you?
I went back once and to drop off my chair, my work chair.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's on wheels, it's heavy, it got sort of cumbersome having it at home. So I brought it back to school along with some recycling. And what else? I don't really know what it was. Oh, I know what I was doing there. I had an appointment across the street at Canadian Footwear. They're not paying us. They're not a paid sponsor.
Not yet.
Because I was picking up my custom orthotics. Thank you very much. So yeah, so I went there and it was I have nothing to get ready. So I'm not sure why are you getting it ready even though the students aren't coming back?
Well, they are, because they are allowed to come back. Last semester, it was very strict about people not being on campus, and they're very, locking it down pretty much. But now they're much more open to students being here, I think. And so of course our college announced last week that everyone on campus has to be double vaccinated or fully vaccinated. So once you kind of shown that you're vaccinated, you can kind of come and go. I think this is how it's going to work. I don't know. We don't really have to worry about it necessarily, but I want to give students the option to use these edit suites because it is the professional equipment that they're kind of paying for with their tuition. Like this is it's a professional microphone, a mixer, and an edit suite with soundproofing, and they can't necessarily recreate that at home. And I found there was some difficulty last year with students trying to do this stuff at home. So I'm making sure that this stuff's available to them. And if they want to come down and do their assignment here, they're absolutely welcome to. And and then as we go through the semester, I suspect that more and more will be getting on campus. I'm also relaunching the college radio station, Red River Radio, so students can come and create content for that as well. That's going to be a few weeks away. Our tech guy is still working on the live stream stuff, but that's so our students still have to be home for classes. My goal is to get them onto campus for other things because they would normally, like if this was a normal year, they would be doing these things anyway alongside their classes. So that's my plan.
So it's legit. So I didn't realize the students could come back when they're not in class, that they could come back and work in the facility and all of that stuff.
I'm pretty sure they're opening that up, and I'm already seeing some students on campus here. They're actually opening up the Tim's at campus next week, so I'll be able to get my coffee like normal. What else is normal here? Nothing else is normal here.
That's when you said Tim's. That's Tim Hortons, Canada's coffee chain for our couple of listeners in San Francisco.
We do have a few U.S. listeners. That's correct. Yes, of course. So I do think they're planning to have more students back on here. This is Media Nerds, of course, and we are going to talk a little bit about our summers, about my adventures on TikTok, and of course about the movies and TV shows and all the other stuff we've been watching over the summer. But first, we're going to have a little segment of Star Wars Nerds. This is a little teaser for those of you who don't listen to Star Wars Nerds. This is what we usually talk about on that podcast because a huge thing was released yesterday on Disney Plus. I always forget what it's called, but it's a behind the scenes of The Mandalorian. What is it called?
Disney Gallery.
Disney Gallery. So that is the overall. I suspect that that's going to be a series. They're eventually going to give us behind the scenes for other stuff as well. But for now, it's only been The Mandalorian. And yesterday, they released the episode about the making of the finale of last season 2 finale for The Mandalorian. Of course, is the big reveal that Luke Skywalker shows up and takes away baby Grogu to the Jedi Academy, presumably. But that was a big deal in the Star Wars universe. It moved you to tears. It moved many, many people to tears, as we learned.
Jon Favreau himself was moved to tears.
We heard from Jon Favreau. We hear from Mark Hamill, of course. Sorry, Dave Filoni, who I think is aware that we're making fun of his hat, so he got rid of it.
He got rid of his hat. Trapper John MD got rid of his hat.
So yeah, we hear from all the guys involved. Peyton Reed, who was the director of the episode, and who of course also directed the Ant-Man movies. And it was a lot of talking heads. But what did you think overall of the episode?
I loved it primarily because they could have called it a celebration of Luke Skywalker and Mark Hamill. That's really what it is. It's 41 minutes long. The preview picture has nothing to do with is a picture of Bryce Dallas Howard, I think, for no apparent reason is the preview picture. But in fact, when you watch the show, it's all about Mark Hamill and talking about being Luke Skywalker again and seeing how they shot the finale and hearing what it meant to people. And so I ate it up. And I actually, the 40 minutes breezed by and I thought I could have gone with another half hour.
Really?
Yeah. I loved it. Why? What do you think?
Well, it was fine. I mean, I maybe I just don't like the whole idea of all these talking heads. Like, it was very self-congratulatory, I think, in a lot of ways. I mean,
Sure.
give them credit. The thing they pulled off that was amazing. No, it wasn't bringing back Luke. It wasn't any of that stuff. It was the fact that they actually kept it secret in this day and age, and they talk about that. And I thought Mark Hamill had a great quote and he's like, you don't have to worry about me. I kept the original Luke, Darth Vader being Luke's father. I've kept that secret for a year and a half, right? He was like, I'm fine, I can keep it. But he made a good point. All it takes is one guy doing a color correction on the frame to see that there's a shot of Mark Hamill in there, and then he's going to tweet it or put it on social media. So they had to be very, very good about keeping things under wraps. So good, in fact, that they made up a fake story and a fake scene to keep it secret. They told people that it was going to be Plo Koon in the original script for this episode, correct?
Yeah, and they even mocked it all up and did art. They had art, and actually, it looked kind of cool, to tell you the truth. It looked pretty good. And Dave Filoni said everybody knows, or any Star Wars nerds know, that his favorite Jedi is Plo Koon. So they would hear that and go, oh, okay, like it's got to be, because that's who Filoni always likes and insists on wedging into his.
I can tell you, I didn't know that. I thought his favorite Jedi was Ahsoka.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? But well, maybe he means favorite Jedi from the movies, or maybe he means something else. I don't know.
I think he's giving the fans more credit than they deserve. I don't think we know that. I don't think anybody knows that about him.
Well, I wonder. Maybe. Well, we're out of the loop on a lot. I mean, on in terms of Rebels and some of the stuff that he worked on, we're clearly into the live action more than some of that stuff, and so it might be obvious. Like if we were deeper into the stuff that he's done apart from the Mandalorian, maybe it would be. I don't know.
I mean, when you think about it, there is really no other option other than Luke to come get Grogu, because they established in Return of the Jedi that Luke is the only Jedi. And I know that we've had Jedis come up and, oh, he's not dead. It's, so many Jedi did not die in Order 66, as we've learned. But at this point in the Star Wars timeline, I believe that Luke is really the only Jedi out there, or the only active Jedi who is training and doing Jedi things, right?
Well, they could have pulled, there's a few surprises that they could have pulled. They could have brought back Ahsoka. They could have had Mace Windu.
Yeah, you were hoping for that, I know.
I think it could have happened. I do. I think he said they had a list of people who it could be, and of course he would have been on that list. There's no doubt about it that Mace Windu was on that, and Sam Jackson is like chomping at the bit to get back to Star Wars. So I think that could have happened, and I also think they could have gone also like, who's this? They could have pulled a surprise, like something that most people don't know, like maybe the guy from the Fallen Order video game. That dude, what's his name?
Cal
Kestis?
No, I don't remember.
Yeah. Crispin Glover, whatever his name is. They could have got him. They could have got him, or they could have surprised us with someone we've never seen before. So I don't think it was obvious, but you and I on our Star Wars Nerds podcast did table Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
As
we just didn't think it was possible because of Mark Hamill availability, and we certainly did not expect them to do what they did as far as the technology, as far as making him younger. Now, they talked about that in great detail in this behind the scenes, and I did find that part of it interesting. But I honestly thought that, like, they kept showing all these different shots of the process of it, right? So they bring in Mark Hamill and they shoot him, and then they had a body double. So for all the moves, all the fancy lightsaber moves, they had a guy who could do those moves, and they did that. And then they took what's that?
There's two guys, right? And they sort of buried that. There's a stunt man and there was a lookalike.
Yes,
a lookalike of Mark Hamill from Return of the Jedi.
Yes, to be Luke's body.
A lot. Like
he did.
Like crazy.
So and then they put it all together. Now really it makes me think, and then of course the voice wasn't even real either. That was the other thing. The voice was also compiled from like recordings of Mark Hamill from that era of Star Wars from the 80s and that kind of stuff. So I thought that was interesting. So really, I mean, they did go to the trouble of bringing Mark Hamill down, but they really didn't have to, right? They could have done this without him.
Well, they showed like one of the things that's left unclear, which is I thought was hilarious given that this is the making of the last episode, but they actually left quite a bit out of the process in terms of first we did this, then this happened, then this happened, and then we ended up with this. It was far more kind of like, here's some of this, and then there's that, and then there's a stunt guy, and there's this guy over here. And they did not just lay it out like a process. They sort of showed, oh, these were all the elements involved, but we didn't actually get to see the order of how it went down. And it looked like it's unclear as to whether they used the Mark Hamill stuff. And unless I missed it, I've only watched it once, but it just seemed like maybe he was on set giving direction to the other actor in terms of do this, I would do this, and I would do that, and I would look here. I don't know. I don't know how much of that, or if any, was captured in the final thing.
Yeah, you're right. It was confusing. They did talk about a lot of different processes for making somebody younger, right? And they talked about, and Peyton Reed was a good person to have there because he was talking about how they did it on the Ant-Man movies. They did it for Michael Douglas. They did it for obviously they did it for Sam Jackson in the Captain Marvel movie. So they've done this a number of times. But I've said that in the moment as I was watching that episode for the first time, I could tell that it wasn't really Mark Hamill. I was taken out of it a little bit. So I thought that some of those shots they showed of the process, in some of the shots he looked better than the actual final product. Like, it was weird. I think they put a little bit too much of a sheen on him or something. I don't know what it was, but there was some kind of a texture thing on his face that made it look a little bit not real. And so they go through all these, but they're kind of going backwards, and they're talking about all the different things they've done in this. And they talked about Tarkin in Rogue One, and they talked about like, again, I don't think that's a good example of good work in this field. Like, we joked a lot about how he looked like a plasticine Tarkin, but it was certainly an interesting discussion. And even going back to, I think it was Peyton Reed had said he'd worked on Forrest Gump. He wasn't the director, but he'd been part of the crew on Forrest Gump. And that Forrest Gump back in the early 90s was like the first step in this, when they put Forrest Gump with Kennedy and Johnson and all those presidents, when he meets all the famous people. That was like the beginning of this technology. And now it's kind of advanced to this point where you can actually have Mark Hamill. So what they did, and the reason why they had Mark Hamill there is because they had him act out the scene, and they scanned his face. And they talked about the egg, where they put him in this little egg with all these lights, and they put things on his face, and they again have him act out the scene. And then they take his face. What they really didn't need to dress him up or any of that stuff. They just needed the face acting from that first part. And then they used technology to make him like younger, and that's it. So I think the face is actually Mark Hamill's face in the finished product. They just made it look, younger.
They went with, he said there's, I can't remember. Let's see if I do remember. He said there's 3 ways we could have done this. Young actor, de-aging, and a complete CGI construction, right?
And I think that what he was implying is that they used all of them. I think that's what he was trying to say, but he didn't say that specifically.
But then I think he said, so we went in on de-aging. So I think it was mostly the de-aging technology,
okay.
I think. But I think I'm going to need to watch that part again. Because as I say, like, it wasn't rolled out in a consecutive day 1, here's what we did. Day 2, it was far more like a little of this, little of that. And so at the end of it, sort of my key takeaway was, wow, Mark Hamill, best guy ever. It's like, yay. But some of the process stuff behind the scenes, I just don't think, I just didn't get enough of a handle on watching it once. But I do think there's more de-aging there than the other methods that they talked about.
They talked about deep fake and the other things as well. And it is interesting. And they've used this technology a number of ways. Like, think about Robert De Niro and in the, what was that movie? The Irishman, right? They aged him or youngified him a bit, and it just seems to be varying degrees of success. And I don't think it's certainly not a perfect process, but it still allows us to see this. And that was kind of the overall point of it, I think, is that we were able to get this story where Luke comes back and picks up a student for his academy. And that's kind of, I think, if we're just thinking about this in a natural universe, that is what would have happened. So I'm glad they were able to make that actually happen.
And it made me wonder, Will Luke Skywalker be back in The Mandalorian?
Certainly seems that they've got it down. They've got the technology down now. They can do
It'll
it.
be even better next time. Next time it'll be even better.
I think so. Yes, it's going to improve it, and certainly, as much as I criticize the face of it, it looks much better. Like what Mark Hamill looked much better than Tarkin in Rogue One. It was like a whole world away, right?
Leia was my least favorite.
Yeah,
Rogue One. When people to this day, when people praise Rogue One as being the best of the modern day movies, I have trouble getting behind that, because I found, like, I loved the Luke Skywalker and the Mandalorian, loved every minute of it. But I wasn't crazy about Tarkin, and I thought even the way he moved was kind of herky jerky. It looked a little too odd. And I thought Leia, they were one frame away from ending perfectly, which is just even showing her face and stopping there, or maybe just seeing her from the back would have been enough. And then the door closes and off they go, boom, and then you see the ship go out. Like, I thought that there was other ways they could have done it that would have wouldn't have called attention to the shortcomings of that technology. But
I think they're a little overconfident maybe in it, and they didn't. And again, when you're so close to it, you don't see the imperfections as much as maybe somebody else does. But yeah, you're right, and I think that would have been fitting even with the whole theme of Star Wars, because we don't really see Leia's face until like a couple of minutes. Like when we first see Leia, she's far away, she's bending over. I'm talking about the very first time we see her. And then they reveal her face later. We could just say that we don't have to see her face in Rogue One. Like, there was no reason for that,
except other than it pushed the technology forward a little, which is always.
But they'd already done that with Tarkin, right? So they didn't need to, I just don't think they need to do that in the same movie. So
no,
anyway.
I want just a couple more things I wanted to say, and that is, I thought Jon Favreau talking about, he said when R2-D2 rolled in, he teared up and he doesn't even know why. Like he said, it's buried so deep in you. But I remember too, when I watched that scene and R2-D2 rolled in, I was like, oh, like it was almost too much to bear. Like as a Star Wars fan, like, oh, I forgot that R2-D2 was in the X-Wing, and there he is. And now Grogu's walking up to him, and they said it's like the Ewok in Return of the Jedi approaching R2-D2. And you're like, oh yeah, like I sort of didn't, it was so overwhelmed by seeing R2-D2 and the Mandalorian, that all of that stuff sort of passed me by. So it's kind of neat that for Jon Favreau to put a nice cap on it. And I also thought it showed how much that actually meant to Mark Hamill. And as a result, it showed how maybe the Star Wars movies, it almost seemed like by omission, they were kind of saying like, yeah, those recent movies didn't get it done. Did you get a little of that? Like maybe a little Rian Johnson and JJ Abrams. They didn't quite, like, they didn't know how to handle Luke.
Oh, I don't know that you think that's what they were saying there, a little backhanded.
Well, it seemed, I mean, they said it in a positive way about The Mandalorian. They didn't say it in a negative way about those films, but I think we can deduce from what they say that they wanted to show Luke Skywalker in a way that they remember Luke Skywalker, and the fans would want to see Luke Skywalker from that era. So I took a little bit of that as even Mark Hamill wanted a chance to do it again.
Okay.
And if those movies were perfect, maybe he'd say no. I that work speaks for itself. I won't come back. That's it.
Yeah.
But no, he came back to do The Mandalorian. The idea that Luke Skywalker was trained by Yoda, and now he's training somebody of Yoda's species, that Mark Hamill points that out.
Yeah, he's the only character that has any experience with Yoda's species.
Yes.
True.
And the fact that maybe it's even more poetic if baby Grogu is related in some way to Yoda.
I think that's too much. I think it's going one step too far.
The trainee becomes the trainer. I love it. I love it if it's true.
So and then does that involve like Luke taking Grogu back to Dagobah to show him Yoda's hut? We won't ever see that, but that could happen in the between the seasons.
There's no real good reason to go back to Dagobah as it stands. There's because there's nothing there.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I don't quite know what we would do back at Dagobah. We'd need something, and it would have to not seem forced, and that'd be the hard thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Interesting.
but anyway, I loved it. I really enjoyed watching it. I could have watched more of it.
And now we have to wait more than a year for season 3 of the Mandalorian, right? Like we'll have the Book of Boba Fett coming up, and they talked a little bit about that. They talked about Boba Fett and how they showed him in this season of the Mandalorian, but that's coming up around Christmas time, I guess, December, and then we'll get the next season of the Mandalorian in the fall of 2022.
Are you a Jedi?
I am. Come, little one.
He doesn't want to go with you.
He wants your permission. He is strong with the Force, but talent without training is nothing. I will give my life to protect the child, but he will not be safe until he masters his abilities.
Would it have killed them to include a trailer for Book of?
Oh, that would have been great. That would have been great.
I was expecting. I watched the credits right to the end. I was like, you never know. They might do it. And I was like, nah.
I feel like they're not doing that stuff as much as they used to. Like they just released the what is it called? What's the new Spider-Man movie called again?
Oh yeah.
Fly Away Home.
No Way Home.
Home Hardware.
Home Hardware. Home of the Handyman. Home of the Spider-Man.
Anyway, that finally dropped the first trailer for that, and people were just like clamoring for it because it's been a long time.
It got leaked. That's why also.
What?
They got leaked. That's why they
got leaked, so they had to release it. But but it was already overdue. Like they had not. They've been waiting so long for it. So it's a good thing it got leaked because people were just chomping at the bit. But so I think that what they like to do is they like to space out the content. So I think we will get a trailer probably right up like close to the Book of Boba Fett, like sometime around there. They'll tease the new content for the following year. And is there any word on when the other series is going to start? Not Obi-Wan, but there was another series that's going on.
Cassian Andor.
Yeah. When that's happening?
I don't think there's a date for that at this point. But we know there's been set photos and stuff. And I think we know they're shooting Obi-Wan as well. And there seems to be like Mandalorian season 3. If you believe what you read online, it could either be coming pretty quickly in 2022 or later in 2022. It seems unclear right now about that.
All it says right now is scheduled to be released in 2022 and will consist of 12 episodes, and that's all we have. So, but I suspect that it's going to be between those two things. Like if I was Disney, I would put it between the Book of Boba Fett and the Mandalorian, right? So people have something to watch in between those two series. So.
Which one would you put there?
Well, I put Andor. I would put Andor in the spring. Like I'm hoping it comes out in the spring. I think that's a good time for it, because that gives us something to watch between, and maybe make sure it doesn't compete with another Disney or another Marvel show. Like Disney, it's all Disney Plus, right? So they're actually going to be looking at the release schedule for all the Marvel shows coming up as well.
I think we are on the cusp of. I think Marvel will be successful with Spider-Man, of course. But I think we've already seen Black Widow sort of being held up as a stinker. I think the Eternals trailer looks terrible.
Yeah,
I have a terrible feeling about the Eternals, and even the actors they've selected. I'm just looking at that thing, going, "What is this? Like, it looks like crap." I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I don't have a good feeling about that. And then there's the Corner Gas. No, not Corner Gas, the Kim's Convenience guy. What's that one called again?
That is the Shang-Chi, which is going to come out next week. I think that comes out, actually. That one looks pretty good. It looks like a Kung Fu movie.
It does, but I got a bad feeling of it in terms of how it's going to do as a Marvel, in Marvel, just because the character is not well known.
Yeah.
And if the movie's great, then of course lots of people will see it based on reviews and other people who love it. But if it's not good, a hero that people aren't as familiar with in a not good movie, when people know Black Widow, and that seems to not have gone over very well, it could be problematic. I just see a little bit of bumpy ride for Marvel in the next little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly seems that we can't really count on everything to be as closely connected as it once was. The big, of course, question mark with the Eternals is why didn't they help out when Thanos, snapped his fingers? And there's a reason in the trailer. I can't remember what the reason was. They tried to explain it in the trailer as far as why we are only supposed to interfere with this one type of alien that's going to invade. That's it. Something like that. There's this one type of alien they were sent there to protect the Earth from, and that's the only thing that they're going to protect the Earth from. Forget it if some other alien comes around and snaps his fingers and wipes out half the population. That is not our problem. So that is basically what they're saying, and that's the same thing for what was the other thing? There was another thing they talked about, and why didn't we help during this? And it just maybe it was during Loki or during WandaVision. I can't remember when that came up, but now of course we're just gonna have all these multiverses and all these other things, so it's just gonna be all come very much more disconnected than it was before. So
well, the Spider-Man trailer definitely is pointing to multiverse, multiple villains, multiple universes, and of course we will see multiple Spider-Men. I think,
yeah, and honestly, I think the big reveal in that trailer was a letdown because we already knew it. We already knew it was happening. Like I knew that guy was. I knew the Doc Ock was going to be in it. So,
speaking of de-aged,
did they de-age him?
Oh yeah, I think they did. Well, yeah, they had to.
I mean, it's been 20 years. Yeah, they had to.
Or they sandblasted Alfred Molina and then put a hairpiece on him. But I think. And made him go to the gym. But I think
we didn't even see the Green Goblin. We didn't see Willem Dafoe. We just heard his cackle and saw a little bomb. So
if he's in that metal armor again, I'll be so mad. The worst. And how about some people have lightened up that one scene and it looks like it's the lizard in the dark scene. And the scuttlebutt has it that all the previous Spider-Mans shall be back in the multiverse.
Spider-Man?
Yeah, so Spider-Mans. So Spider-Man, Peter Spider-Man's bridge will be there. All the different ones.
Yeah, and that one we'll see. I mean, I'll go watch it in the theater because it's a Spider-Man movie and it'll be fun to watch, but I'm not confident that it's going to be as good as the other ones. I worry about too many villains. That was a problem. Even in those other Spider-Man movies, that was a problem later on. So we could run into too many villains and then just maybe too many Spider-Men. Like it worked kind of in Spider-Verse, but those because they were all very different Spider-Men, right? They're all different types of people, different creatures, different things. These are all just going to be a bunch of white dudes being Spider-Man. Like I don't see it being a lot of different, right? It's just all different versions of Peter Parker.
Right. And the trailer gives away Doctor Strange making the world forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. But it gets screwed up. The spell he gets interrupted and the spell screws up. And so now, I don't know, Loki is going to show up from the planning department or something. But it's going to be to explain all the different timelines from anyone who didn't watch the Disney Plus show. Is that what's going to happen?
Yes, that's what's going to happen. He's going to be he's going to show up with his variant jacket on.
Yeah. He doesn't wear the cape and crown anymore. It's all business attire. So he'll show up with the tie and Owen Wilson.
Speaking of Marvel, have you been watching What If? What If is a different comic. They'll make What The series.
I can't watch What If. I can't bring myself to do it. Why?
Really?
Have you?
Yeah, of course. Why can't you watch it?
It seems stupid.
That's it. It seems stupid.
It just doesn't appeal to me. I used to read the comic when I was a kid, What If? And it's just like, I don't know that I want, if we're going to see multiverse in the movies, I don't know that I need a what if this happened or what if that happened. They can actually show us what if something happened in the movies if they're going to open up a multiverse. So I just, plus it's animated and I'm just a little less inclined to watch that.
The animation is pretty good for the most part. I want to what it is. I was disappointed at first because I also loved the comic series as a kid. And when I saw the first trailer for this, is that it's not what if based on the comics, is what if based on the movies. Of course it is, and it didn't even occur to me. So it's what if based on the MCU. So every episode has been what if basically, and it's basically been what if this Marvel movie had gotten differently, because it's all been themed around, like the first one was about Captain America. So that is what if that, like the first Captain America movie, that is the events that takes place, and of course you probably know based on the trailer that it's that's Peggy Carter who gets the serum instead of Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
And then they kind of go forward from there and to show you what happens there. The next one was about T'Challa, Black Panther becoming Star-Lord instead of Peter Quill. So instead of what's his face goes down and kidnaps a different kid. And then the third one that just dropped yesterday was actually, I thought it was really interesting. It was what if the Avengers had died? So it's similar in ways to the what if the X-Men had died, which was one of the classic issues of the original What If. So they did this thing where somebody goes and kind of before they form the Avengers. So this is going back to the early phase 1 movies, and you see scenes from like Iron Man 2 when he's in the donut and that kind of stuff. When Fury's going around trying to form the Avengers, somebody starts killing them. So the story is what if the Avengers died before they even formed, and that was an interesting look at it as well. So I am enjoying it. Now that I realize what it is, it's actually pretty good. And I don't, of course, they are saying that this is the multiverse now, so all these things do happen, but it's just, they're just fun little stories. I quite enjoy them.
Oh, well, on your recommendation, maybe I'll give it a shot, but those always tend to be gloomier. Well, the comics did anyway, tended to be gloomier, darker versions.
They were, yeah. In a lot of cases, it's like, what if this person had died, right? And there's a lot of deaths in this one. It's kind of, I don't know if it's meant for adults or, I mean, it's fine for kids, I guess, but it's pretty, like there's, the Hulk dies. Sorry, spoiler alert, but Hulk dies in a pretty interesting way. So it is. I think I wasn't quite sold on it until I saw this last episode, but I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed this latest one. So you might just want to wait till it's all out and then just check out the ones having to do with the heroes that you like, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, I'm a completist, so if it's good, I'll watch all of them, and if I just can't get past the first couple, then that might be it. But and you know what? I've watched most Star Wars animation, but not Rebels. Like there's the occasional thing where I'm just, look.
I didn't watch Resistance. I didn't.
It's like, I'm glad if people like it. I'm happy that people like it, but it's not everything has to be for everyone.
Right. Exactly.
Doesn't mean I hate the Marvel universe if I don't watch the What If.
Exactly.
Journey to face the unknown and ponder the question. What if?
I do want to talk about TikTok because I've had a lot of fun this summer on TikTok, as have you.
Yeah, we both challenged ourselves to post more, and I think I've hit it basically I'm at the equivalent of every weekday.
Oh, that's pretty good.
With some weekends thrown in. Yeah, I sort of wanted to do that. I just wanted to like populate my channel with the content, which it didn't have much of before.
Mm-hmm. And I've done that in a different way. So what I've realized, in the first, I guess, 6 months or so of just observing TikTok, like I didn't post anything. I just watched videos and kind of, saw what was going on. But I did notice that, most channels had a niche, right? And that seems to be the big thing on TikTok, is that everybody has their own thing. And so and the algorithm encourages that. So you get, as you post, when you start posting, the experience becomes quite different, I find. And you start getting, the algorithm starts kind of putting you in this, what they call, they just add talk to whatever it is. So I am in kind of film talk is what I would say it is. It's like the part of TikTok that talks about movies all the time. So almost all the videos, even in the videos in my For You, which are supposed to be the kind of the ones suggested to me, are still mainly about film and collectibles, because my thing is going to be collecting DVDs. I decided that I was going to rebuild my DVD collection. I talked about this in the previous episode. So I've been TikToking that and kind of filming my, going out to thrift stores, going to Walmart to buy the cheap DVDs and that kind of stuff. And so everything that I've posted on there has been about movies. And I in a way, I like that, but also don't like it, because then I don't feel kind of as free to just post a random video of something that I might want to post, like something funny that I might see. I guess I'll save that kind of stuff for Twitter or Instagram.
I think you should
TikTok. It really just is about the movies.
I think you should just go for it.
Yeah.
Who cares? Yeah, I think I heard I can't remember what podcast I was listening to, but I heard a good discussion about TikTok on a podcast. And it might have been the Washington Post, actually. The Washington Post did a podcast with where they interviewed the guy who does their TikToks, and he's funny, and he's like stuck at home because of COVID, etc. And his advice was, don't overthink it. Just post whatever you want, and people will find it, or they won't, and just keep plugging away, kind of thing. And don't Like, he's like, don't worry about perfecting things. It's like, it's better to just, hey, shoot the thing you want to shoot and just post it up there. And so I found that very inspirational. So now I sort of just throw stuff up there and, hey, let's see what sticks. And I, you post all the movie stuff. I've been posting collectibles stuff,
Mhm.
or I just take short videos of my collectibles and put a song behind them and make a joke out of it, kind of thing. And I've sort of just gotten more interested in screwing around on TikTok than I really am with followers or anything, or with views. Although I have the one, I think we both have the one that went crazy. Like, what's yours up to now? That one.
I'm just trying to look at it. My big video that kind of went viral was the one about the Simpsons quote, and I've got like 150,000. Oh no, yeah, something like that, 150,000 views on that or something like that. And that, you're right, that part should be kind of secondary. I find a lot of the people that I'm following and interacting with on here are very much obsessed with the follower count, and they're like putting out, I've reached 200 followers, thank you, and all this other stuff. And I'm not really doing any of that because it's I don't know. To me, I don't want to worry about that kind of stuff. Although I have been growing my following, I have been trying to grow and get more followers. I've done that by mainly doing the follow back thing. I know that that's kind of a crude way of going about it, but it works for the most part. I mean, nobody's going to know about your channel unless you follow them and show them that you exist. However, when the thing I found on that, in that case, a part of that has backfired on me is the fact that there are so many kids on TikTok. There's a lot of children on TikTok, and I have followed some children on TikTok that I didn't mean to follow. I didn't know that they were children. I was just following people who liked my video, following people who follow other similar channels. Like, I do the same thing on Twitter. I do the same thing all the time, but there's just not as many kids on Twitter, and I don't follow any kids. But occasionally I'll be like, follow this person, and then a little while later in my For You page or in my following page, it'll be like this kid doing a weird dance or something like that. I'm like, oh, I don't feel right about that kind of thing. Like, I wouldn't want a random adult man to follow one of my kids on TikTok, so I'm not going to follow anybody else's kids on TikTok, So there is that. That is the one issue. But for the most part, it's been a lot of great, people online talking about movies, lots of great discussions. I have the ability now, because I've reached more than 1,000 followers. This is how it works on TikTok. If you hit 1,000 followers, you get the ability to go live. That is not something you can do until you hit 1,000 followers, apparently. So now I have the ability to go live.
Way to go.
What's that? I can't decide what to do with it. I was thinking about playing some movie trivia. I was thinking about also doing 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, which might be kind of fun. Which, if anybody remembers that game, because it's been forever. But anyway, that seems, and there's other people I noticed who go live in this area of TikTok. Often will do trivia or just talk about movies. And then the trend that seems to be the biggest for the movie talk or the film talk world is the questions. What is your favorite Christmas movie? What is an underrated movie? What is this movie and that movie? And that's a big thing. So people asking questions and having people respond to those questions is a big conversation driver in film talk.
Well, but I also notice sometimes it's just a desperate plea to get people to interact. And it's no good asking for answers if you do nothing with the answers. It drives me nuts, the folks who do that. Like, at some point you have to follow up with the people who answer.
Well, I try to, anytime I ask any kind of question, I try to acknowledge and respond to anybody who comments or stitches it or something like that. Yeah, I think that you're right about that. And actually, I had an interaction like that. So I did one. There's a guy, I don't remember his name. I don't follow him because all he does is ask questions. Like, that's all and that's not fun content to watch. I'm sorry. Like, I like the question thing every once in a while. It's fun, but just to do it over and over and over again every day, that is not a great TikTok channel, in my opinion. So, but this is what he does. And one of the questions was, what is your favorite Christmas movie? And it can't be Die Hard. That's his thing. Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. And I'm pretty tired of this argument. I'm pretty tired of the debate. If you like watching Die Hard at Christmas, go right ahead. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, enjoy.
But jokingly, I stitched it and said Die Hard 2, because Die Hard 2 is also a Christmas movie.
It sure is.
Anyway, and then he responded to that and he said, no, it's not. But thank you for stitching anyway. And his I guess one of his reasons why Die Hard isn't a Christmas movie is because the villain dies, and nobody should die in Christmas movies. I guess. I don't know.
What?
I don't know. Whatever. I don't know. I don't want to get into that argument, but I'm just saying that it's good to acknowledge when people comment or people talk to you, because that keeps them coming back, right?
no one should die in Christmas movies. So in Gremlins, when she recalls the famous death of her father who got stuck in the chimney, remember that?
That came up in a conversation as well. I can't remember where, but someone was saying that they hate that scene and they think it ruins the whole movie in Gremlins. These are the kind of conversations we have in film talk, right? And I disagree. I love that scene. I think it's hilarious. It comes out of nowhere. And it kind of makes the movie for me, that and the part where the mom microwaves the gremlin. That's always the microwave gremlin has always been my favorite part of that movie. But I like the Santa getting stuck in the chimney.
So, but would a person who says death has no place in a Christmas movie say recollecting death has no place in a Christmas movie? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like where do you draw the line on that?
I know that's a debate for another time. Yeah. I think that yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a legitimate Christmas movie that has a death in it. I can't think of anything offhand, but I mean A Christmas Story has ghosts, so those people died, right?
Right.
Sorry, Christmas Carol.
A Christmas Carol, right? Exactly. Scrooged, which is just a variation on that.
So TikTok, what I've learned, yeah, you're right. TikTok is very informal, and I do enjoy. I did follow Howie Mandel for about a week, and then I unfollowed him because I found him too annoying. But one celebrity that I do love following is Kyle MacLachlan. I gotta say, Kyle MacLachlan is just a delight on TikTok. He's a lot of fun. But I do not follow a lot of other celebrities. And honestly, it has changed. Like TikTok, the algorithm and my experience has changed fundamentally since I started posting. Has it changed for you since you started posting?
Yeah, it has. And I mean, I had the one that went, I think about 130,000 on that woodpecker, a woodpecker with Mel Blanc providing Woody Woodpecker's voice in the background. Of all things, that seems to be the most popular thing that I have ever posted on TikTok. But since then, I've started, like when I first was using it, I was just like, this is kind of fun to post content. And I wasn't really taking in a lot of content. Whereas now I'm watching more. I'm sort of a better TikTok user in terms of like enjoying other people's content. I followed Anthony Hopkins, who is a shockingly great TikTok user. He does stuff on there that you just don't expect. And I think I discovered that I like seeing older people than me because then it makes me feel younger. And I think like you, if I was just following a bunch of kids, I'd be like, what am I doing here? I don't care about the dance craze. Let's put it that way. I have no interest in whatever the dance craze is. So I kind of like seeing what everybody's doing on there, like a range of people and with different things. So I think it also has plugged me in more to what people are talking about on other channels that originates on TikTok. Okay,
yeah, so I heard, I can't remember, somebody gave me the stat and I haven't not verified it, but it's like TikTok has contributed to most of the viral videos in the last couple of years. Like all videos that have gone viral beyond TikTok, like the ones that go, like the guy with the Fleetwood Mac thing, that thing was last year. That was the one that went beyond TikTok. And that's, there's been a lot of those over the last couple of years. So, and
there's even news on there. There's even news on TikTok.
Like, I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of different ideas for TikToks that I want to try. I'm in transition right now. I'm moving, getting ready for work. There's so much stuff going on that I just don't have time for. So I'm hoping that once I get into settled into my new place and settled into the new work semester, that I'll be able to actually start making more TikToks. What I want to try and do is make it easier for me to do, so that I'm not like worrying about the setup and the logistics of it too much. I find that editing in TikTok is horrible. I can't stand the editing, interaction or whatever. I've been using an app called CapCut to edit my TikToks, and that works out pretty well.
I don't use any. I just shoot it as is.
Yours are like one take shot with the sync, right?
I don't care if the lighting's a little bad. I'll never go back and change it. Once in a while, I'll look at it and go, "Oh, my hand is right there," or something, And I'm like, who cares? And I just leave it. But to me, the fun of TikTok is its shortcomings make it fun to use, because you can't. It means that you can't be professional. It's going to be amateurish and a little rough by definition. And that's what I think works about it. You know, the limitations, because it's irritating trying to type text in. It's irritating to trying to edit. You're absolutely right. And adding effects sometimes doesn't work. You go back into the effects and you can't see any. Like you can't see where you've added them. It won't show you.
The editing, the sound editing part is a whole other section. So really you're saying that the Canada's Progressive Conservative Party should have kept that Willy Wonka video on TikTok and not put it anywhere else, because that was very amateurish. And you're right, it would have been fine on TikTok.
Yeah, on TikTok, anything. It's kind of like we're all dealing with the same shortcomings of this app. I mean, and I've also noticed, I get my students to do something on TikTok toward the end of second semester, just as a bonus toward, like, after a whole semester of digital media. And I noticed that some of them, the first thing they'll do is be like, where's my video editing software? And I'm like, no, you don't get it. Forget the video editing software. You know, they're opening up Adobe and all this stuff. You're like, no. Just shoot it on your phone. Like, my phone's not very good. Who cares? Good. That'll make it even more realistic if your phone's not very good. Like, my phone doesn't even shoot video very well anymore. And you're like, nah, that's too bad. That's what we're gonna do. It's the Robert Rodriguez method of shooting.
That's right. I found that I did actually get I think it was iMovie. I figured out a way to edit the vertical video in iMovie, which is what you need to do for TikTok as well, because it is a vertical platform. But I just find it's too much of a pain to put video on my computer and then send it back to my phone and do all this crap. So
it's too painful.
CapCut is on my phone, so I just do it all on my phone. And the other thing is that I have to make sure that I flip it, because when you normally shoot a front-facing phone, it flips it, right? It's reversed. But I show a lot of movie covers on my channel, and I have to be able to have it. I like it to be front, like, readable, so I have to make sure that it flips around so it's not reversed. And that is an app an effect in TikTok, but it also is something in CapCut that I can do as well.
What's the effect?
The other thing is, and TikTok, what I've heard is that there is not a ton of support out there for Canadian creators. I guess the Creator Fund, which is the way that TikTokers get paid, isn't in Canada. So only American TikTokers get paid for their TikToks. No Canadian TikTokers get paid. But I assume that will eventually come here.
Sorry, what's the effect called that reverses the camera view, or the view so that you're not reversed? What's that called?
Reverse? Something inverse?
Is that what it is?
Did I favorite it? Is my question, because I favorite these things.
I was gonna say, I don't think I've ever noticed it. That's why I'm asking.
Well, and then the other
I should be aware of this.
There's so many effects. There's so many different things that I only saw it because somebody else used it. Like I didn't realize until I saw somebody else. So that's the thing. And I think it's called reverse or inverse or something like that.
There is lots of internal things to look at on TikTok, but really you don't need most of them.
No, and it's really, like, I think it's a matter of just figuring out how it works to get it to work for yourself, and then once you figure that out, just go with it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. Follow us on TikTok if you want to follow along with what we're doing. Again, when I move in, I'll have a lot more content going up there. Probably starting next month, I would say. I'm probably going to start posting like every day. Try to do like what you were doing every weekday. I'll try to get a video up.
It's hard to do when you're teaching.
It's going to be a challenge. Maybe I'll do it on the way home every day.
There's so much marking to do that eats up all your valuable TikTok
Maybe
time.
I can make that a TikTok. My marking assignments can be my TikTok.
Nobody is going to want to see a depressed face staring at, like, assignment number 75. No one's going to want to see that.
I like you. Have a cupcake. I like you. Have a cupcake. Smack my ass like the drum.
All right, well, let's wrap up with some, I guess, recommendations, but also just talking generally about stuff we've watched over the summer, because it's been a while. I have a couple of series and a couple of movies to talk about. What do you want to? You can start with one of yours first, and then we'll go.
I can do mine very easily. Like, this might be the easiest thing for me to do. To say, I have watched. I said to you, I've consumed more media this summer than I ever have before. Another summer of COVID, more or less another summer of COVID. And so I ended up just like taking in every kind of media to its extreme. But the one thing I did more of this summer is watch movies, full-length movies, because I was starting to notice my Netflix and Amazon Prime queues watch list getting, like, beyond manageable. And I was like, okay, I got to knock out these movies or I'm never going to see them. So I'm going to do it. And I knocked out a bunch of films And one of the funny things that happened, I'm not going to name all of them, but I'll name the ones that I sort of ended my big run with. And the thing that sort of stuck in my mind, which I was not expecting, and I don't know, I heard good things about these films somewhere. And so I watched all of them, and they all ended up being very disturbing films, like good films, but that accomplish their goal of disturbing you. And so like by the end of this, I was like traumatized. I was like, why did I put myself through that? I think I know why they're in the watch list for so long. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The last 6 films that I watched, Netflix and Amazon Prime, are Saint Maud, the movie Rocks, which is about kids growing up in Britain, disadvantaged kids growing up in Britain, I guess is a way to describe it. The Killing of a Sacred Deer with Nicole Kidman, The White Tiger on Netflix, Devil All the Time, which stars Spider-Man and the Winter Soldier, not as Spider-Man and the Winter Soldier, but the 2 actors from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Devil All the Time, and Annette, which is the film by the band Sparks, and also disturbing. It's a musical, but the less said about it, the better. It's better to be surprised by it. It's on Amazon Prime. So I watched all of those films. All of those films are good films, but that I think some people aren't going to like because they're so disturbing. And specifically, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, and I'll single out Saint Maud and say, okay, devil possession movies like Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist, and you watch them and you're like, not only did that creep me out, but now I'm afraid my TV is haunted because it's so creepy. Okay, so Saint Maud is like, what if it's not devil possession? What if it's God possession? Okay, like that's a little bit what it's about. And that movie freaked me out in a way, and it's very successful at being haunting, let's just say, but it really made me feel unsettled for a day.
Okay, I might watch it. That sounds good.
Oh no, on all of those films, like as I say, every one of those films I mentioned are good. They're very good films, successful at doing what they set out to do, which is disturb you. Whereas the only one in that list that I'd say is not, like Rocks is the one film. It's disturbing in its own way, I suppose, but it's more of a slice of life. The other films are all like, what is, like, oh my God, like they all set out to creep you out.
Okay. For my I also watch a lot of movies, not only because I'm buying more DVDs for my collection, but also because I just started watching. I'm like you, like you get caught in these series and they just dominate, and then you just forget about all the movies that are out there, right? So I did make a concerted effort to try and watch more movies. These are all on Prime. For some reason, I've not found the Netflix selection to be great, and any Netflix movie I've watched recently has been like Gunpowder Milkshake is a good example. I watched 20 minutes of it and then turned it off. I just found it to be too stupid. Like there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on.
Sure.
But I am trying to not do that and trying to commit at least more, because I think about, you think about back in the day when you went to the video store and you rented a movie and you came home, and even if it was crappy, you still watched it because you rented it and you brought it home, right? So I'm trying to have that mindset. But anyway, these movies, so the first one I want to mention, these are all on Amazon Prime. Val, you mentioned, I saw you tweet about Val, and this is the documentary about Val Kilmer, which I liked. I didn't think I was gonna like it because I was always, and maybe this is why he made the movie. Val Kilmer has a reputation for being difficult to work with. He's always had that, and now of course he's gone through his problems with his throat cancer and he can't speak properly and all that issue. But I found it to be a very good movie, and I was very surprised that what made it for me was all this behind the scenes footage he'd taken as an actor over the years. Like every movie set he's on, he brings a video camera to and records himself, and that's awesome.
Amazing.
Like I love it.
Love that. Yeah, I love that film. I don't see how you can't love that film. Like it's amazing. The footage, his story, the stuff from the island of Dr. Moreau.
Love it. I was just gonna say that the conversation with Marlon Brando and then
on a
guy who's not Marlon Brando. Like it's so funny. So Val was very good if you haven't seen that yet. For the listeners. And then and the other ones I watched on actually this is just recently, so on Amazon Prime, these are all kind of science fiction-y movies. Stowaway, which stars Toni Collette, Anna Kendrick, and Daniel Day Kim. Did you watch this one?
I know of it, but I've not watched it.
It's about a guy who gets stuck on a spaceship. It's good. It's a good science fiction because it is a realistic look at like a mission to Mars, and somehow a guy gets on the ship that isn't supposed to be there. So now they have to figure out how to get to Mars. They don't have enough air for everybody, and that is a real scientific problem that would happen. So that's why I like it. It's kind of hard science fiction, which I really liked. Greenland. They say Greenland in
I
what's
watched
that?
it. I watched
What do you
it.
think?
I got some problems with that film. Why did you like it?
I liked it. I mean, yeah, it does have problems. It's not a perfect one of the problems being the way they pronounce Greenland or Greenland. But I liked it overall. I'm a fan of like this idea of the I've read so many books and seen so many movies about like the end of the world, the comet hitting the earth or the thing hitting the earth. So I did like the idea of and it seemed to pack a lot into that 2 hours. Like so much happens in that movie that I'm like, I can't believe we're not done yet because there's like it just feels like so much happens. But I did like it. Another one I liked called The Endless, which was about these two brothers who leave a cult and then go back to the cult 10 years later or something like that. It's really interesting. And then the last one I have what?
I saw that film and I love that film. I can't remember what's and by the way, that's a sequel. That guy's done a few films where he plays where those characters appear. Yeah,
I read that. I went and looked it up afterwards, and I couldn't find the other movie on Prime, but there is you're right. There's a prequel to that one, and one he did before. It was so good. I was just shocked about how good it was. Yeah.
What's it called though?
The Endless.
The Endless. Right. Sorry, I just couldn't remember that. That's great.
And then the last one I have here is called Final Voyage, another science fiction story about these two guys, a lot of them about two guys, who find a spaceship in the middle of a field and they fix it up and go somewhere. Like it's about them escaping from a planet or something. So that was another fun little science fiction-y thing. So those are like the movies I watch. I like my science fiction, and it was a lot of Prime. But I've watched a lot of different movies. So what about series? Any series you watched this summer?
Definitely. But I wanted to say about Greenland. I just remembered one thing about it, and that is Gerard Butler. This is the setup of the film. Gerard Butler says he's been selected to leave to escape the apocalypse that's coming, and his neighbors are over at his house, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I've been selected," and they're kind of like, "Well, what about us?" And he's like, "Don't worry, I'll call you from the airport." He never calls them from the airport. What an asshole.
Well, considering all the other stuff that happens to him, you kind of give it
what a jerk.
And as they're driving away, you can hear the neighbor going, "He's going to call us. He's going to call us. He's going to call us." Nope. They sat there by the phone the whole time. And
I actually thought that I would have enjoyed it if the film ended and you saw that guy sitting next to a table with a phone on it in the middle of a devastated, still waiting. I'm sure he'll call us soon. His family's skeletons sitting around the table.
All right, so we got to wrap things up. But give us a couple series you watched this summer.
Oh my God, Dan! So many. I mean, hang on. Let me just quickly. I'll just quickly look here and just name a couple. The Chair on Netflix, which is a new film, new series about post-secondary education. Generation 56K on Netflix, which is a wonderful foreign series about a relationship and how technology has changed over the years, which I liked. The White Lotus on HBO, which is was a breakout hit over the summer, was so just a delightful. Like once again, HBO pulls it out of the bag. And then also I have to give a special shout out to Clarkson's Farm on Amazon Prime, which is British presenter Jeremy Clarkson trying to figure out how a farm works because he owns one. And the crazy things that he gets wrong. And I just ate up that show like candy, even though I really didn't watch any of the Top Gear shows that he was on, and I don't know anything about farming. And maybe that's why I enjoyed that show so much. So Clarkson's Farm. Those are some of the standouts, but I watched like 30.
Yeah, I watched a lot as well.
How about you? What stands out?
For me, I finally got around to watching the final season of The Man in the High Castle.
Oh yeah,
which I hadn't watched. I just couldn't get interested in it, and I did watch it, and actually it was very good. I quite enjoyed that final season. So that was one of them. I also saw now there's only a few episodes out right now, but 9 Perfect Strangers, which is a new series on Prime. It's very star-studded. There's a lot of big names in it, and I've really enjoyed it. There's only 3 episodes up right now, but I guess they're doing. They did the old release the first 3, and then we're going to do one per week for the rest of it. So that's out right now. And then Mr. Corman, which is on Apple TV Plus, and this is Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and it's just brilliant. It's produced, written, starring him. He's just this guy. He's like, it's kind of like a slice of life kind of a show where he's just a guy. He's a 5th grade teacher. He's dealing with life's problems. There's no pandemic or anything like that, but it's still, I find, very, very, very good. He has an interesting relationship with his mother. It's just kind of a really well performed, well acted show that tells interesting stories that you can relate to because it's about life. And so that's really good. And then the last one I want to talk about is Rutherford Falls, which is starring Ed Helms, doing his Ed Helms thing. And I'm not a huge fan of Ed Helms and his whole shtick because it's getting a little old now. But the best part of the show isn't Ed Helms. It's the other cast, the rest of the cast, because this show is about it's about a small town in the U.S. I think it's supposed to be upstate New York. And it's got this Ed Helms is this guy who's very closely tied to the history of the town because it's Rutherford Falls and he is a Rutherford. It's his family history tied to this town. And there's a statue of his great-great-grandfather in the town. And then there's this whole thing about people wanting to take the statue down because it's blocking traffic. It's this dumb thing. But it really is an interesting look at, the statue situation, which became an issue here in Manitoba this summer when people tore down a statue of Queen Victoria at our legislature. The interesting thing is that this I almost said Ted Lasso. This Rutherford Falls episode aired last year before any of that stuff happened. So our premier should have watched it. But also, it's got a great portrayal of Indigenous people. And so the story is the town is next to a reserve, and the Indigenous people there run a casino. And so it's talking about their community and their business. And apparently the show has like half of the writers on the writing staff are Indigenous. So it is coming from a genuine place. And they are like portraying Indigenous people in a realistic way. And I think that's great. And that's the only time I've ever seen that in maybe a Canadian show. This is an American show. It's on Peacock in the US. So for an American show to do that is quite interesting. Canadian shows have been doing that for a while, but Americans are not quite as tied to that as we are.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a show called Reservation Dogs out.
I've seen that too. That is Taika Waititi, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
I have not watched it yet, but it's my if you've seen it, it's my understanding that show does something similar. Is that right or no?
Yeah, it's not similar. It's a different type of I believe it's not about a reservation. Like it's more about the casino life. Honestly, we don't see a ton of shots in it's about them running a casino and then how that's important to their community and how it's not a sellout and they can still be Indigenous and still celebrate their culture and run a business, like all that stuff they're talking about. It's really, really good stuff. So cool. Surprisingly, Rutherford Falls is a good show, even though I didn't think I was going to like it based on the ads and based on my hatred of Ed Helms. So
very good.
All right. I think that's going to do it. We've been talking for a while.
Yeah, great.
All right. That's going to do it for this episode of the Media Nerds. I'm Dan Vadabonker.
I'm Kenton Larson. Don't let the door or the force hit you on the ass.